Hello, friends. It's a Johnster Monster with episode 11 of Shadow and Flame with Magik, the podcast. Today, following up our big episode 10 with Lockheed's first appearance, we are concluding our namesake of Shadow and Flame with Magik with Magik's first appearance herself. And we're going to review the fourth oldest comic in my collection. I am lucky enough to own the first three appearances of Wolverine and the Incredible Hulk, 180, 181, and 182. He shows up for like the last page of 180. So 181 is like his full appearance. And you see that in like old school Wizard issues or comic buyer's guides. But he has a full appearance in issue 180. Like it's like the final page splash. So we're reviewing Giant Size X-Men #1, first appearance of many a character. By the time you are able to download this episode, if you go to my YouTube channel, Jackal SIII, you would see a YouTube video I made of the actual copy of Giant Size X-Men I'm reviewing for this episode. I'm pretty sure I bought it like 10 years ago, maybe in like fine edition. So it probably cost me like $50. But one day I was at my mother-in-law's house and realized, my beloved mother-in-law, I was going to say R.I.P., but I was like, well, that's a little shorthand. Anyways, and one day I realized like, well, if I'm going to ever own Giant Size X-Men, it'd be nice if I did. And then, but there's no way I was ever going to own a near mint edition. But I was like, well, how cheap is cheap and still be readable? And I tried to look through my emails to see when I bought this thing, because I'm like, either Walker was a newborn or it was right before he was born. And that little bundle of joy is going to be 9 years old on Friday. So happy early birthday to Walker D. And he probably would love for me to promote his YouTube channel, Walker D World. He's currently having an advent calendar and making a video per one of those. And anyway, so I couldn't find a copy of it. I looked through the blog, and apparently I never did a review issue of this, which is also irritating. Like, come on, man. It's literally the third part of your namesake of their blog. You never got around to Giant Size X-Men? So anyways, here we are making up for past mistakes. It is Giant Size X-Men, 68 big pages since shattering first issue, Marvel Comics Group. Released in 1975, it would have cost you 50 whole cents. It's the classic cover with the original X-Men team, Beast, Angel, Cyclops, Iceman, and Jean Grey in the background in blue, as if they are from the past. And the splashing from them, which I guess I never really thought about, like, what would have been on the bottom of that image that they're cutting through? Just their legs? It's the all-new, all-different X-Men with Colossus, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, Storm, Wolverine. And it took until someone else like mentioned it like years and years ago, where it's like, yeah, Cyclops is in both the past and the present. And it's like, oh yeah. I guess I never really gave it much mind attention of, like, he is in both images. How silly. And this is Deadly Genesis. I'm trying to be very gentle as I turn the pages. So, Uncanny X-Men. Writer, editor, Lean Wayne, co-creators, along with Dave Cockrum, illustrator, colorist, Guinness Wayne, very, at the time, connected relation. And then letter, John Costanza. From the ashes of the past, there grows the fires of the future. The grandeur and glory begin anew with Second Genesis. And then the opening splash pages, Jean, Angel, Cyclops, Beast, and Iceman. In like a smoky background. Now this Beast, like the cover Beast is Human Beast, but this Beast is Blue Beast. And when I finished reading the comic a couple hours ago, I was like, I don't think Beast is actually in this comic. Or if he is, he's in a background. and I did not recognize him. And I wasn't sure if I was looking for blue or human. And then in front of them is Wolverine, Storm, Thunderbird, Colossus, Banshee, Sunfire, and Nightcrawler. And Giant Size X-Men is published by Marvel Comics Group. And it just says 1975. And so the very first X-Men we were introduced is to Nightcrawler. And all the narrations done by Ling Wing. Westendorf, Germany, nestled deep in the Basilian Alps, this tiny village has hardly changed over the centuries. In Windsordorf, life is gentle, peaceful, for nothing ever happens here to disturb the domestic tranquility. And just reminded right now, I want to say thank you to everyone who, with episode 10, I did a media blitz of promoting the blog. Like we did a soft launch with the introduction first episode, and I was like, well, let's see who we find with just however people find me. And then I went on Uncanny Xcast and Turtle Soup's Facebook pages and got some great responses there. I went on Twitter. I made a pinned tweet. People liked it and retweeted, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who decided to follow along with this episode. Anyway, so people are chasing Kurt. They're screaming he's a monster. He thinks to himself, monster? Is it the fools? It is they who are the monsters. They with their mindless prejudices. Perhaps things would be simpler, safer if I had stayed with Der Jarver marked. But the life of a carnival freak is not for me, not for Kurt Ragnar. Let him come if they must. Let them try to kill me. At least if I die, it will be as a man. And he's just like running across rooftops and like wall crawling. And it's a very interesting point that they mentioned on Oh Golly, Oh Gosh, Oh Wow podcast, the Excalibur podcast, about how it's very telling with that they went with Nightcrawler as the very first mutant. Just, he's the most non-human looking of the batch. Like, you have Colossus all in metal, but he's still human, like, he's just silver. Meanwhile, Kurt has, 4 fingers, two toes on each foot. And this is Nightcrawler's first appearance. He was would have been a Legion of Superheroes character for DC with Dave Cockrum, and then he left and went to Marvel and just had unused characters, and that's how we got Kurt and Aurora. And so, and Nightcrawler is very close to Dave Cockrum's heart. They both sharing a birthday, November 11th. And the narration continues, ironically, the astonishing leap alone lends doubt to Kurt Ragnar's humanity, and his hideous howling, like that of a baying beast, denies it completely. And this comic, I don't know, it's because they knew it was going to be 68 pages, but each left-facing page has a little text saying, promoting an upcoming comic. And this one says, Supernatural Third 13, an unlucky issue for the living dummy. Living mummy. Ruh-roh. But the only response the cornered misfit receives is one he had hardly expected. And the villagers are legit throwing fire at Kurt. Like their torches they had lit. Like they're literally chasing him like he's a monster. And they're just going to burn down his whole city. And eventually he has nowhere else to run because he just, it's either burn or run. And he can't run anymore, so he takes option 3 and just jumps into the crowd and just decides to just start wailing. And with a tham and a choke, without the E, he starts fighting back. Howling wildly, Kurt Ragnar plunges through the thick of the mob until the sheer weight of its numbers carry him down. And people are just shouting, we have him, quickly, bring the stake. And because in 1980, with Kitty Pryde's first appearance on Uncanny 129, they ended every page before an ad stating continue after next page. in case you were going to flip the page and be like, well, I guess this comic's done. But it's like, no, wait, on page 3, it says continue after next page. So they've been doing that practice, must be for 5 years at least. And one of the ads here is coming soon from Mego. 4 great new Marvel characters: the Lizard, Falcon, Hulk, and Green Goblin. So if you bought that whole set, poor Falcon's going to be outmatched there. Oh, no, I say that, but literally has the Hulk. Which I guess in my mind is like, it's like 3 green characters versus Falcon in his red and white outfit. And then, so they're just winning the fight against Kirk because, 100 people versus 1 man. One man's only going to win so long. And then finally you hear a mental stop. And remarkably, they do. And Kurt meets Xavier. And he explains to him how he's a telepath and he's a teacher. Though he doesn't tell Kurt that he's a lousy teacher. Wait, I guess he taught 5 students very well. And then after that, just lost his mind with not doing a good job. And so agreeing, if Xavier offers him to, if Xavier is honest with Kurt, this is where I'm going to falter with, like, I can read the captions, no problem, but then summarizing the dialogue, it's like, oh no, I got to get better at this. He offers Kurt an opportunity to become whole, and if he can make him a whole Kurt Ragnar, if he can make me that, teacher, I will go with you. A witch shall be born in Savage Sword of Coden number 5, and a Cimmerian must die. Quebec, Canada. Few people know of this secluded military installation. Fewer still know of its true purpose. It is the home base of a special government agency and its very special agent. The agent cipher coded Weapon 10. Well, it says Weapon X, but we know now that it's actually Weapon 10. Thanks to Grant Morrison. And so Wolverine comes in, but better known to us as the Wolverine. And Wolverine barges in the room, like, all right, gents, I'm here. Who's the big wig you want me to meet? And then Xavier's there, like, I'm him. And he offers him an opportunity to, he knows of his Hulk fight in Hulk 181. And that he's a mutant. Oh, yeah, because he told Kurt he's a mutant, too. And Kurt was like, a mutant? I've heard this word. And so everyone's like, oh, I'm familiar with the term, but I never asserted, they're not out mutants. And Xavier tells Wolverine he's needed for a desperate mission. And Wolverine's quick to accept to get out of there because he doesn't want to be under any red tape and rigmaroles anymore. And then the colonel is very mad at Wolverine for accepting the deal, which makes you wonder, like, what did Xavier tell the Canadian government he was going to do when he showed up? Like, oh, you just want to talk to our secret agent, Weapon 10? Please, go right ahead. And they're like, wait, you're going to offer him a job? Like, what is this? So you just assume Xavier just mind-controlled people, and then while talking Wolverine let loose his grasp on him. And then Wolverine's like, it seems that you didn't get my meaning, friend. This is still a free country, isn't it? So I'm resigning my commission, effective immediately. So they leave. Jack Russell must destroy the Death Demon in Werewolf by Night 30. And Wolverine, of course, will have to deal with this decision when many issues from now when Alpha Flight comes for him. And I guess now's a good enough time to mention how with Weapon 10, there's also a little retcon about how this is actually Xavier's second attempt to rescue his X-Men, where this is leading to as blank on his name now, who did Deadly Genesis. Ed Brubaker. I was like, man, he was like a very famous comic book writer back in the day. And I'm sure, he's still famous for making, turning Bucky into Winter Soldier. But yeah, Ed Brubaker. And then he did Deadly Genesis. Then he took a year or two of Uncanny X-Men and sent characters into space. And anyways, it's a whole thing. But we're not delving into that just yet. I want to say I have several issues of that because I want to say Kitty's in some of those issues. Nashville, Tennessee. A visitor to the Grand Ole Opry finds he has a visitor of his own. And because we've already introduced ourselves to Banshee earlier in Uncanny X-Men, Xavier just essentially shows up shortly in Banshee's shabby quarters. And Banshee agrees to go on the mission. Which I guess is fun that they do like new character. A slightly newer character than old character. And then we get to a brand new character. Kenya, East Africa. Atop a lonely knoll, there stands a great stone portal. Men come to it in humility. Their voices raise in praise and song and prayerful supplication. Aurora, great goddess of the storm, the voices cry, come unto us and ease our burden. And the hollow pearl of thunder and the moan of lonely winds, the storm goddess comes. And they offer her several of their goats and chickens if they just want a little bit of rain. Her eyes are crystal blue and older than time. They sparkle as she answers. Like, save your beast, my children. You need more than I. I will do as you plead. And Storm's hair is clearly covering her naked breasts, and she's just a woman of Africa. Her liquid eyes grow dark then, and the sky grows dark as well. And just with thunder and lightning. Once more the howling winds come up, and sweep the storm goddess away. She soars aloft like an ebon bird, lightning lancing from her fingertips, the glow of life and shining full upon her face. She's happy here, only truly happy here among the elements. And the raging sky, touched by her happiness, weeps. When the storm goddess returns to earth at last, her joy is shared by all. And it's amazing what Cochran does here with, like, all the rain. Like, I don't know if he just drew the art first and then just drew these thick lines across each panel, but, like, it looks very dark with, like, how thick the rain is. See Man-Thing 18, where the swamp creature is destroyed by foam? And then Storm lands on her feet again, and Xavier's there. Somehow he got all the way to Africa and got his wheelchair into his traditional wheelchair all the way through all that grass. And he offers her to join his team, and she's like, an offer? What have you to offer a goddess? And I guess he's quick to explain to her that you're not a goddess, you're a mutant. And you have responsibilities. Come with me, child. Taste the world outside. You might find it flavored bitter or surprisingly sweet. And then Storm agrees to go with him. Osaka, Japan. The two acquaintances share tea in the splendid garden of Shiro Yoshida. And Xavier is talking to Sunfire, who's just wearing a blue bathrobe with yellow, or maybe it's a Komodo. Let's say it's a Komodo. That sounds nicer. And he's like, so, you offer nothing, Professor. Perhaps I owe something to myself. And then legit, so they're at, like, getting tea at a table. And then his next sentence is, perhaps it's time once more for the world to hear from Sunfire. And he's just outside, full costume. Like, did he say that? Like, I owe something to myself? Excused himself from the table? Went outside, like, got dressed, went all the way outside, made Xavier get in his chair. Well, I guess he was always... Well, no, I don't know. When they're getting tea, it looks like he's just sitting without the chair back. And then went all the way to his favorite tree and was like, perhaps it isn't time once more for the world to hear from Sunfire. Like, poor Xavier is like, I can read your mind. I know everything you're practicing to say. That's got to be irritating for telepaths, right? I don't know if anyone's like me, but, like, if I'm walking to you, by the time, like, with a purpose to talk to you, like, in my head, I've probably already at least got the greeting and, like, my opening sentence, like, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, paper came in here. I guess these are work examples. So, if you're a telepath, you're probably just hearing me think that, and then you hear me say it. And it's like, oh, man. Like, this is twice. Like, Pietro's bored like that, too. Or Quicksilver, where he's just like, you people are so slow. Which I want to say they dealt with a little bit in Ultimate X-Men, where Xavier, instead of reading books, he just pries into the mind of authors and just read their minds as they're writing. And it's like, okay, Xavier. Just Xavier's prime characteristic is he doesn't respect boundaries. So Sunfire, established character, we're not spending too much time with him. He legit gets one narrow panel and then a quarter of another panel, and we're off. Lake Baikal, Siberia. It has been a good year for the Odchisky Collective Farm. The crop has been larger than expected. The wheat feels the fields like an amber sea. Oh man, feels the fields. Like, it's great to read, but saying it aloud. Feels the fields. Gotta hit that D. And those who toil in the fields are field. Oh man, Lean liked that expression so much, he just was like, fields of fields, hard to say. Just make him say fields are field. See if that's easier. It's not. I'm still too much in my head about it. Fulfilling a satisfaction, the knowledge of a job well done. And fear. And someone's like, Peter, look, your sister. And Colossus in just like brown pants, white shirt that we used to call wife beaters, but now I don't know what you call it. Just a white tank top? Yeah, that's obviously what you should call it. He's like, what is no? Colossus' impression being worked on. Except not really. Peter Rasputin looks up from his work, and his eyes glow wide with horror. He discerns it all in his instant. The runaway tractor, the child playing blindly in the path. And I guess this is the other criticism of any Wikipedia page or comic book wiki you will find where it says Illyana Rasputin's creators, Arlene Ween and Dave Cockrum. And, in the script, it's clearly going to be Colossus runs to his little sister, who's a blonde girl wearing, a green smock and a brown headband. Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know. She's much younger. If he's 20, she's 6. Except, I guess he's 18. But still, he looks like a man. Whereas one could argue Chris Claremont breathed life to her. Like she's, I was going to say a horrible analogy, like the baby that the parents died in a car accident and then like their uncle raised her from like an infancy. And it's like, well, that's a horrible analogy, but I made it and here we are. But like clearly Chris Claremont developed the character. And one might say he created Magik, but not Illyana, if you want to split hairs, which I guess I do. And without hesitation, Peter Rasputin is running, legs pumping, heart pounding, the very air around him crackling with the energy of his exertion. Energy released in the most astonishing manner. And he steals up. The armored machine bears relentlessly down upon the unwitting child, as an armored Colossus snatches her from its path. There is no time for Peter Rasputin to move out of harm's way, lest he stands his ground as the rampant tractor plunges toward him. I guess it's a good idea if I mention like how clever they've been on working in, like Kurt's already in his red and black outfit. Storm's being referenced to a goddess of storm over and over. Colossus has got referenced as Colossus. Like they're doing a great job of putting the thought of like superhero names to you before these characters have names. Like Wolverine has a name already. Banshee already is established. Sunfire. Giant size Conan number 4. The barbarian in chains, but still Conan. And he wonders how his poor neighbors will ever afford to buy another tractor, that is. That, though, is a worry for another day. This day is filled with problems enough. And so Meadow Colossus is holding Illyana. Things says, Peter Rasputin, I wish to speak to you. He has a Russian accent as well. And Colossus, Peter's like, that voice, Peter, is that voice in my head. Who? And now we know the answer to that question. So moments later, which is fun, because it's like, yeah, like he's Xavier, he's going around the school. You get it, right? And he offers him to come to America and use his powers, but Colossus is worried that his powers might belong to the state. And Xavier's response is like, well, not to the state, to the world, for the use of all that is good. Like, your powers are needed. Which I like the idea that he's like, yeah, we need your powers for the world. And he told Storm the same idea and Kurt, but really, he just wants his 5 students to be rescued. Like, come on, speed this up. Then come, we will talk of this with my parents. And so Peter's father is like, well, do what your heart tells you. And poor Colossus is like, well, my heart tells me to stay, but my conscience tells me otherwise. I must go, Papa. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Oof. And then I feel like with Thunderbird, is we start getting a little dicey, like 1975. There's some shortcuts with characterization that, and this will be later on too, about like these all different X-Men don't quite get along with everyone, which might be a great idea for a starting off point. Like, everyone's a little hostile to each other, maybe because they're not communicating well or they don't know each other and there's no real trust there. So it's a great idea to make them all a little hesitant and weary of each other, and then that gives you, drama and tension. But it's also a great place to be like, well, let's start them off here, so then they can all become friends in like their 5th appearance together. Camp Verde, Arizona. Arizona represent? John Proudstar does not like the reservation. He does not like to watch the old ones sitting slumped against their doorsteps, dreaming dreams of glory long gone. John Proudstar is an Apache, and he's ashamed of his people. The Apache were meant to be hunters, warriors, not sad-eyed, simpering squaws. They were meant to run free through the crisp plains, grasses, and wind blowing wildly through their hair. Which is like, come on, buddy. Like, you're clearly like 25. These older people, like, they were once 25. Now they're older and they just want to sit. Let them sit. This young generation, always making you get up once you're sitting down. Put your earbuds in. You gotta take them out, talk to people. Come on. Once nothing could stand before the Apache. The bison that covered these plains feel like rain before Apache skill, Apache bravery. But never did any bison fall like this. And Proudstar like caught up to the bison and just like throws his head into the ground. Spider-Man and Valkyrie, more mighty Marvel Magic and Marvel Team Up 34. And then Xavier calls out to him. And Proudstar's like, huh? Oof. Yeah. So they disagree at first. And then essentially Xavier or Marty McFly's him by calling him that he's frightened, like a selfish children. And just like goats him into being like, fine, I will do it. Which is horrible, because in like 3 issues, Proudstar's are going to be dead for, I'm pretty sure, for like 50 years. And then, or maybe 40 years. And now, like, he goaded him into doing this. He doesn't want to be part of the team anyways, but he called him chicken, and now he needs to join the team. Like, come on. Oh, I should have said that this whole thing being Proudstar, that was all chapter 1. This is chapter 2. And when there was one. Oh, the way I started reading, I was like, oh yeah, that's an expression. But I don't think it is. Winchester, New York. The school had settled. Seemed a latter-day Tower of Babel at first, but a telepathic chasm course in the English language had closed the communication gap in mere minutes. Just in case you were wondering, like, how does a Russian guy speak with a German guy? This is how. Now Professor Charles Xavier sits somberly, studying his colorful costume house guest. And whatever thoughts he might have at this point are his alone to know. which I guess is most Xavier's thoughts. So Wolverine, Sunfire, and Banshee are in the back of the room, and like they're on the stairwell, and so your eye goes Wolverine, Sunfire, Banshee, and then if you're being generous, you go right to left with Kurt. And I like to think like, oh yeah, those are the 4 who had costumes. Then Thunderbird, Storm, and Colossus are new outfits who they just agreed like, yeah, we'll wear these. And Xavier explains how the uniforms are constructed from unstable molecules which adjust themselves where necessary. I obtained them from a man named Reed Richards. I'm certain you'll learn more of him and his friends later. Which is like a nice little plug. Because even the bottom pages, and even the Fantastic Four save the Inhumans from themselves. Oh yeah, but then they don't promote what issue. You can look that up at. But still, like Xavier must have designed these outfits. And Clash is wearing this classic half shirt thing with the yellow sides and the yellow middle, yellow big belt, the red trunks. Storm's wearing her black cape. Well, these are the first appearances. The black briefs, the black boots, thigh-high boots, the headstress. Proudstar's wearing his Thunderbird outfit. But actually, it's a pretty cool logo. Which I don't know what it is, an eagle, maybe? And then Xavier's, talk about Reed Richards, the Sunfire's like, we don't have time for this. Like, what do you want? I'm losing my patience. Then Cyclops opens the door. Oh, yeah, Xavier's like, well, let me not explain to you. Let someone else explain it. Scott Summers, the man called Cyclops. And he just swings the door wide open. Not even knowing that he has a brother. And Xavier right in front of him is having the thought of like, dude, I let your brother die, but I'm not going to tell you about it. So, don't read my mind. And also, I'm going to make you forget that you met your brother. Oh, man, I said I wasn't going to get into it. Anyway, so Cyclops is explaining that the X-Men have disappeared. You 7 are our only hope. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Come on, I may as well show you where it all began. And so the X-Men, or the OG X-Men, which was Angel, Jean, Iceman, Cyclops himself, Polaris, and Havoc. Oh yeah, so I guess this answers the question. Beast is not in those comics, so he must have been deep into being an Avenger at this time. Anyway, so they got a signal that a big, powerful mutant classification on the island south of Krakoa in the South Pacific. So they go to, investigate. So I like the idea that Krakoa is an established island. Shortly after, a specially designed Stragglejet, and they're going to say Straddlejet a bunch later, arced high over the patchwork countryside, streaks toward an unknown confrontation, but at that moment our minds were on other things. Wait, and Jean even says this. Ugh, I did read this comic over the course of 2 nights, and I completely forgot about this flashback. But Jean establishes, wish we could have contacted the Beast. Hank McCoy's dexterous digits might be handy on a job like this. And Scott's quick to say, Hank graduated the X-Men, Jean. He hasn't got time for us. Now it's his business. It's Daredevil versus Blackwing in a deadly game of Hydra and Seek. Oof, that's horrible. And so they touch the ground, and then all of a sudden they got zapped with a ray. And Cyclops says, I'm ashamed to say I never even saw what hit us. My head was a throbbing mass of pain and screaming. Images when I struggled awake, Lord knows how long afterward. I didn't realize where I was, nor did I really care. All that concerned me was, my friends, what happened to the other X-Men? And worse, what had happened to me. My eyes, dear heaven, my eyes, they've uncovered, they're normal, powerless, but yet still gleaming with red energy. And his costume's a shred. His left pant leg is just destroyed. It's non-existent. It's just threads. He still has both gloves on, which is a boss move, but his shirt's just barely holding on over his left shoulder. And I wasn't in control. Automatic pilot's jammed. Can turn this crate back to the island. I spent the next 5 minutes pounding fruitily on the control panel. then resigned myself to the situation and sat back in my seat. I wasn't happy by the time I reached Westchester. Not happy at all. And just Cyclops like slams the door wide open. He pretty much just retells the story, which would have been fun if we dedicated a whole issue, another page of Cyclops telling the previous 2 pages to Xavier. Sort of like Frankenstein, how that story is like a story within a story, where at one point, like, the monster's telling Frankenstein, who's then telling Dr. Frankenstein, who's telling the guy on the ship, Windsor? Windsor? Something like that. Who's then writing a letter to his sister. And at one point, the monster's even telling a story of a French family he's come across. And then he's relaying all the story of them. So it's like, I don't know. It's a Russian doll of narrative. And while talking to Xavier, all of a sudden Cyclops' power just like comes full blast. But I should have known better than to even ask. The optic energies that had cursed me since my early teens were back again with a vengeance. And this time they were so strong even I could not control them. I guess because they were just been holding back for so long. And so he's like, and now I need you. And Logan's like, well, I guess we don't know his name's Logan yet. And he found us, so what now? And he's like, well, now we're going back to Krakoa. Oh, witness the frightful fate of Glenn Tabbitt in Hulk 188. It's so weird which comics get their issue numbers and which ones don't. And Sunfire's like, I don't want none of this. I'm out. I'm outie 5,000. Moments later, the straddle jet streaks skyward, and there is only one empty seat on board. And all of a sudden, they see that Sunfire has come right back. So it's weird. Like, top of the page, he's left. 3 panels later, he's right back. So it's like, why do we need this? And once on the plane, Kurt's like, why did he come back? And he's like, the reasons are nobody's business but my own, Misfit. You do well to remember that. Gwen Stacy's alive and well? Find out for sure in Spider-Man 145. Chapter 3, Assault Force. An hour passes, 2 hours, until the forsaken atoll called Krakoa looms full before the viewpoints. And Cyclops is full leader mode. And I can't say much for your sense of humor, Wolverine, nor yours, Thunderbird. And Proudstar corrects him. The name is Proudstar, One Eye. And for like the rest of the issue, Cyclops is going to keep calling him Thunderbird, and he's going to keep calling him One Eye. So it's like, if you just called him Proudstar, he probably would have called you Cyclops. Not anymore. The professor has given you all code names. Group, you might as well start getting used to them. Now the assault teams will be as follows. Storm, you and Colossus will come in from the north. Banshee and Wolverine will move across from the east. Sunfire and Nightcrawler will start searching from the south, which neither of them are happy with. We can argue when you all get back. Now go, East team, go, North team, go. And it's funny because Banshee needs to shout to make his powers work, and Wolverine's heightened senses is like, do you have to screech like that? Cripes. And it's like, oh, poor Banshee. Because I guess in my mind, he always just did the initial shout and then like glided wherever he needed to go. But like, I forget, like, no, he's shouting the whole time to stay afloat. Sunfire's holding Kurt's hands as he flies them across. Colossus just jumps out the floor of the plane, the straddle jet, and Storm's quick to be like, no, what are you doing? And she catches him. He's like, oh, I can land with the best of them. But she doesn't know. Well, earlier, he was in metal form, but she probably just assumes that if you're in metal form and still land on your feet from the plane, you know, your knees are going to be broken. But anyway, she catches him. Once more into the straddle jet's viral system, lowers it to the earth, and through he tries. The man called Cyclops cannot suppress a shudder. How many more will we lose this time? He wonders morbidly. Would I even live long enough to find out? But he's a professional, the star-crossed mutant. The questions follow him as he steps out upon the landscape, and he leaves his fears in the ship. And so Cyclops and Proudstar are about to start heading out when he remembers he forgot the mini Cerebro unit, and he turns around and his shadow jets is missing. The shattering secret of Falcon revealed in Captain America 186. So they see a giant temple, so they start heading to it, and it's so gigantic that all the teams are going to start heading there, which now I had to think about, well, they're all just going to go to a giant temple. They could have just not separated into mini teams and just came together and just met there. But Cyclops and Proudstar had to fight off some weeds. Grumbling and annoyance, the mutant, now reluctantly called Thunderbird, follows his cyclopean companion into the verdant underbush. John Proudstar has never much liked the jungle, and apparently the feeling is mutual. Within moments, the two young X-Men have left the straddling creeper vines far behind them, and it is not terribly difficult to determine which way they have gone. Classic X-Men. You always know where they've been. 14 minutes later, and they're at the temple. Continue next page. Well, minutes earlier on the island's north side, and Colossus and Storm are outrunning an avalanche. And the avalanche is just following them, which they are like, it's unnatural. And then he grabs a tree to save Storm from a bunch of rocks coming her way. Well, I guess that's what an avalanche is, right? And Storm's quick to be like, I thank you, Peter, but there's no need for you to protect me. I'm no longer threatened. And so they get to they catch up to Cyclops and Thunderbird, or Proudstar. Dang it, I meant to respect his proper name. The mighty Thor has but one life to give, and the Absorbing Man wants to take it. On the island's east side, Wolverine is fighting two giant lobsters. And Banshee punching his way through. I guess and then he streams himself up and spracks the lobsters in half. So they both took out one lobster, so that's nice. And then the Aaron-born mutant is already aloft, and through his sonic scream is not nearly so flamboyant as his companion's slashing talons. It is nonetheless equally effective. The battle is violent but brief, and soon, Banshee and Wolverine catch up to them. While on the island's south side, Kurt and Sunfire are fighting giant yellow eagles coming at them. A burst of flame, the stench of brimstone, and the mutant called Nightcrawler suddenly elsewhere. His laugh a little more than a hideous howl. And Sunfire's not impressed with him, but he burns the bird, and they start flying, making their way to the temple. Catching up finally. Man gods from beyond the stars conquer the earth in Marvel Premiere #1. We're on page 36. And so they're into the temple. Wolverine, Colossus, Wolverine. I mean, he's there, but Cyclops and Colossus both put their hands on the wall. Cyclops determines that the doors are sealed tight and it's about a foot thick. In our very first example of mutant working together, Cyclops, Wolverine, honestly, Cyclops, Colossus, it's the too many C names. Sunfire and Banshee use their powers to break through the wall. The lesson is entitled Breaking and Entering, and although the neophyte X-Men lack in finesse of their predecessors, they certainly get an A for effort. Still slightly astonished by their own abilities, the young mutants step cautiously into the Stygian darkness and find their hearts swivering heavy in their throats. And being sucked dry is Angel, Polaris, Havoc, Iceman, Jean. Like there's just this bunch of vines like connecting their bodies, just being fed upon. And they get them all rescued. Scott grabs Jean, of course. Wolverine and Banshee get Iceman, who's still powered up, so that can't be comfortable in anyone's hands or arms. Scott's carrying Jean in a classic the Crisis cover of Superman and Supergirl that's been repeated ad nauseum. Trying to see who got who. Colossus is holding Havoc. And even as the arcane temple topples into the ruin behind them, an angel finally catches his breath. He says, "You fool, don't you understand? It wanted you to come back and bring others with you. It was all a trap, and now it's too late." And all of a sudden we see the mutant is the island itself. Chapter 4. Oh, wait. Can even Shang-Chi, Master Kung Fu, survive the rampage of Razor Fist? Good thing we stopped for that. Chapter 4, Krakoa, the island that walks like a man. And Dave Cockrum has designed a perfect island-sized monster. Not a monster, an island that walks like a man. Krakoa. And he just is, I don't know, like a giant man thing, but his eyes, like 2 giant red eyes and gnarly teeth, and without those face tentacles. So nothing like man thing, maybe? Images flood a mutant's mind as they stand rooted into the spot, the sunburst brilliance of an early atomic test, whose unseen radiation permeated every living organism here, until they grew linked in a colony intelligence that gave the island a life of its own, and Krakoa grew hungry then, a hunger barely appeased with the X-Men arrived upon the scene. Krakoa fed upon their mutant energies and grew hungrier still. Thus it released one X-Men and sent him forth to find more food, which Cyclops did. And then he got those 4 mutants stuck. And he went back and got more. And Krakoa speaks, "And now we will go hungry no longer. Yes, we use you, eye this one." Because from his point of view, Cyclops doesn't have one big eye. He just has 0 eyes. "As we use the legless one who gathered you all together." Honestly, it's worse than like the nicknames of the whole give people. "At the command of a voice only his mind could hear. But the time for explanations is past. Now it is time for Krakoa to feed." Cyclops is like, "Scatter X-Men quickly." Assuming, of course, the vegetation monstrosity has any, which is doubtful. Oh yeah, because Wolverine's trying to claw it to see if any blood would come out, but no blood. Storm's lightning's not doing nothing. Mere words could never begin to describe the sheer unbridled savagery of the battle that follows, so we won't even attempt it here. Just know it's a half the page, and the X-Men are just fighting it. Optic blasts, lightning bolts, heat blasts, banshee screams, havocing, an angel just flapping his wings. Colossus is punching. Proudstar is dodging. Kurt looks like he's dodging as well. And Wolverine's doing some climbing. Suffice it to say that the conflict goes wildly on until Xavier tells Cyclops, well, not tells him, like mentally, telepathically speaks. How do we say it? That he has a plan. And I guess he's back in New York. So that's quite the reach he has. In an instant, Professor Charles Xavier mental commands are projected halfway around the world. Then he closes his eyes, steels himself for the coming ordeal, and concentrates. And the battle is joined. Who will be drafted in the search for new Avengers? Find out in issue 136. It is a war fought on 2 fronts, as Professor X wages deadly mental combat with a crazed community intellect, while his students race to carry out his plan. At Cyclops' command, the eyes of the mutant called Storm glow dark once more, and she soars aloft on the wings of the wind. High above Krakoa she hovers, slowly summoning to her the tempest-full electronic fury. Then suddenly transmitting those seething energies to the life young woman who once waits anxiously below, thus restoring the mighty magnetic powers of the girl called Lorna Dane. Not to be mistaken for the cookies. The Uncanny X-Cast reference. Within moments, the circuit's complete. Laura Dune. I was like, I don't think that joke's going to land, but it totally did. Within moments, the circuit is completed. The Storm and Polaris moment here is the official first mutant circusy, which Jonathan Hickman would do for Hoxpox. Which now I wish I had bought that trade at Barnes & Noble, and my lovely wife was like, yeah, just buy it. And I was like, well, and I should have just bought it. It was a beautiful hardcover. Maybe, well, no, I've already submitted my Christmas list. It's not coming my way. But maybe for my birthday. Anyways, back to it. Then Lorna Dane screams in anguish as she physical limits her reach and exceeded. And she's just like screaming, like, don't stop, Lord. Whatever you do, don't stop. And Havoc wants Scott to tell her that she can stop. But, I mean, she literally doesn't want Scott to stop her, nor the Lord. And Scott's quick to be like, I can't sacrifice a word to save one woman, Alex, even if she is the woman you love. Which is messed up. But I guess he holds that truth. Oh, no, because he's ready to let the whole universe die when, like, Jean Grey's threatened on the moon. And Havoc's like, I swear to you, brother or no brother, if she dies. The remainder of Havoc's angry outburst is slain by the cracking roar of the thunderous downpour, even as the torrential waters lend life to something else. And Krakoa is recognizing, like, he's up in the air, and it's not where he wants to be. But the rain has, though, made Krakoa stronger. Fools, you brought rain from the sky to destroy us, but it serves only to replenish us and give us the strength to destroy you. But as before, the X-Men argue the point quite strongly. With that, Astronom Scott Summers turns to find that the figure of Lorna Dane has become lost within a coruscating incandescent tower of sheer magnetic force. His mutant eyes narrow, and a single word forms upon his lips. Now! And then the two brothers put their powers combine. Conan the Barbarian faces the unconquerable Eunice, the uncanny, in issue 51. The explanation mark looked like it a 1 as well, so I was like, 511? Come on. It took Uncanny X-Men like 40 years. Which is my second reference to years, and Tom Brevoort does this day in comic history, or these comics were released on this day. And the 20 years ago was... why did I even try this? On the Avengers... Oh, Jeff Johns, before he went DC, became Mr. DC, he was on the Avengers, and right before Bendis took over the title, naturally. Which, honestly, I was not a big fan of Jeff Johns' Avengers run, and I was willing to drop it, but then this Bendis guy was showing up, and I was like, I'll stick around. Anyways, Jeff Johns was on Avengers 20 years ago. And I want to say there was another comic that was like, Captain America. Was that Robert Kirkland on Captain America? No, Ed Brubaker. I'm the worst. Ed Brubaker and Captain America. Why didn't I even try this? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I was way into comics 20 years ago. As one can be in their 20s. I guess I wasn't. Anyways. And almost... the brothers together. With almost indescribable force, Lorna's magnet energies erupt downward through 5 miles of ocean, through 4,000 miles of Earth's ancient crust, down to the very molten center of the planet itself, where its effects are immediately and violent. What is happening to us? Why do we feel so strange? Our mind hurts so. Can't retain our humanoid form. Please help us. And everyone's just trying to get off. In the rain, it's just pouring in, and like Cochrane's doing a great job again of making that rain look thick and heavy. Both things. And move it they do, and a few other beings on Earth possibly could. And they're just trying to get out of there. Page 45. Swiftly and desperate, X-Men clamber aboard the crude ice craft and then hang on for dear life. As the mutant powers of Cyclops and Havoc propel the makeshift vessel away from Krakoa with the speed of a hurling hydroplane. Behind them, the world convulses in carnage as the results of Lorna Dane's energy bolt become apparent at last. For electricity-charged burst has cut across the planet's primary lines of magnetic force, severing them. For the instant about the island Krakoa, gravity ceases to exist. Then the earth force comes violently together, and the effect is the same as squeezing wet soap through a fist. Which we don't really have soap bars here, but I was trying to envision like the last time I had a bar of soap in my hand and like trying to squeeze it and how that would just be slippery. Krakoa's death cries ring for long seconds in the minds of the awestruck X-Men. Then a few more frightening reality intrudes upon the scene. The ocean is rushing to fill in the space Krakoa just vacated, and we're caught in a whirlpool. And sadly, Krakoa is now in space and being jettisoned across the universe. And poor Darwin and Gabriel Summers is on that island that walks like a man. Daredevil, Luke Cage, Son of Satan, Igala guest star extravaganza in Defenders 24. Voraciously, the great ice bubble is sucked into the wildly swirling maw, and those within are battered across senseless against the cold, unfeeling walls. They voice their pain enthusiastically, and then they are gone. The seething waters swirl close across above their heads, and for a time the sea is calm. The minutes pass interminably, and then the huge gleaming bubble bursts the water's surface, and it in itself bursts in turn by the beam of scarlet fury. And the X-Men have survived the encounter. Shortly as the shadow jet streaks skyward. Oh yeah, because the jet's waterproof. And Angel asks the question, "Sorry, we don't have seats for all of you, but this plane wasn't designed to carry so many mutants, which brings us to a little problem. What do we going to do with 13 X-Men?" Page 47 poses. We'll find out next issue with the Doomsmith strikes. And it's funny that Angel asked the question because, well, bub, you're not going to make it. And so we get 3 backup strips. And the first one is a Cyclops origin story. None but editor Stan Lee could supervise such a minuscule masterpiece. None but writer Roy Thomas and artist Werner Roth could co-create such a dramatic drama. None but our ever-loving inker could possibly expect letter Artie Limerick to spell a name like John Verporten. I'm going to opt to not read these captions because we're almost at the hour mark. Another page from the X Family album presenting I, the Iceman. Frigidly fashioned by Stan Lee, shivering scripted by Arnold Drake, perpetually painted by Werner Roth, icily inked by John Vertiport, lukewarmly lettered by Joe Rosen, which originally appeared in X-Men issue 47, which makes me want to... Oh yeah, Cyclops was originally published in X-Men 43. And then we get Jean Grey, and she only gets like 3 pages compared to everyone else's like 7 pages. The Female, the Species, edited by Stan Lee, written by Linda Fite, penciled by Werner Roth, and inked by Sam Grainer, originally published in X-Men 57. Yeah, she gets like 4 pages. And that was Giant Size X-Men number 1. Brr, 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 brr. Legit, like 2 minutes ago, I realized I did not do that sound effect. Produced by me. Anyway, so thank you so much, everyone, for listening to Giant Size X-Men. Please go to Jackal SII on YouTube to see how badly beaten this is. I didn't even mention it, but this comic legit looks like a cat got to it. And you can really tell, like, it nibbled on... Oh, you know what? In the video, I'm pretty sure I was proposing that it was chewing on the left page, and then somehow I got to the right page. But clearly, it must have just been chewing away on the corner. And then I can only imagine when it was being pulled away, it scratched the cover. And that's why some of the upper comic is torn. But so please follow the YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr if you so want to. Also, Jacko SII. Pretty much any you Google Jacko SII on any social media platform, you should find me. If you don't find me, hit me to it on Twitter. That's usually where I'm most active, and you can I will join that social platform and claim the title. I don't know what I'm going to do for next issue because I sort of want to make my Christmas issue comic. I want to review the day after Christmas because I like releasing these on Mondays. And but I have an idea of something to review for, but I gotta see what I could do. My wife has decided that we're not gonna put, because usually we wrap presents and then just put them under the tree, but she's thinking it'd be a fun idea if we bring them all out on Christmas Eve. So right where my comics are, it's just all the presents we've bought so far. Well, the presents I bought my wife and the few I bought for Walker, and then other ones that we bought for Walker, and so they're all on top of my comic book boxes. So I gotta figure out how I'm gonna put Giant Size X-Men 1 back as well as grab the next issue. But I gotta figure that out. But that's on me. So hopefully you'll join me next Monday, ideally, as we review the next issue. You can follow the blog. Not the blog. Well, yes. You can go to shadowandflamewithmagic.com and follow the blog. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram on as SNFWM. And thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you for episode 12. All right, everyone. Bye.